Welcome. Today we are going to break down standing forward fold, or forward bending is going to be the action that we'll be highlighting. And a few key points that I just want to bring to the foreground of your awareness before we get started is that alignment. We always want to seek that over range. So that is going to show up in these three different approaches and variations that we'll explore in this pose. It's also important that as a movement-based teacher that you spend some time understanding the mechanics of movement and how the beautiful, unique students that you'll have in your classes will be showing up, and how you can provide the support by understanding how the body moves and how intelligent and organized it is. A few key points to really consider, especially as we are going to talk about forward folding from a standing position. You've got the relationship to gravity that you want to pay close attention to, and a key element in forward folding is to keep the natural curvatures of your spine. We have tendencies sometimes to try to round or take ourselves out of the natural extension, thinking that it's really going to help us access the pose. But two key areas to consider here and keep in mind is the cervical spine and the sympathetic relationship to the lumbar spine. And that actually, the naturalness will keep the elongation that is going to be required for you to have a successful experience in this pose. Along with keeping the natural curvatures of your spine, this will also elongate the spine, and then the abdominals will just automatically stabilize, especially when you're in the transition of actually coming into the fold. So that's a key area as well that highlights with the natural curvatures is the abdominal engagement. We will use 3 P's in the posture alignment here, and we're going to use position, proportion, and presence. And we're going to move into variation A, which would be limited mobility. Variation A, limited mobility, which could be due to tight hamstrings or tight calves or the whole backside of the body tight, some tension in the upper body as well. So that's why we want to practice forward folding. This is a great variation for all students and a great start point. This will be done at the wall. So you're going to take your mat to the wall, and then you are going to position and walk your feet out from the wall so your back is towards the wall and your hips will connect with the wall. Feet come out about 16 inches or so, and then here's a key piece to this, is the position of the feet are going to widen. And they're going to widen maybe about 1 foot to 14 inches or so, and you're going to parallel the blades of your feet to the edge of your mat. Now, you do want to turn your toes in slightly because this creates an internal rotation in the hips. And when we forward fold, we always want to hinge from the hip joint. It's flexion in the hip joint that we're seeking, and movement from the pelvis actually rolling over the top of the femur bones. This will ensure that when we're forward folding, we are using the hip flexion rather than folding or rounding from our low lumbar spine. We want to avoid that. So this is a wonderful way to access this pose. Now, as you're coming into the fold, you want to keep in mind those natural curvatures of the spine again. So instead of creating a curve of this cervical spine, of a lifting of your head, you're actually going to lower your head to create more of elongation in that curve. That will equate to the curve remaining in your lumbar spine. So slowly you're going to start to come down, and the abdominals will naturally start to stabilize because of keeping the naturalness in the curves of the cervical spine and your lumbar spine. Key element here, you are up against the wall, and what actually is going to start to take place is your sacrum will start to move up the wall, and the point where you're not feeling the strong connection to the wall with your sacrum, that is the point that tells you immediately with some feedback to stop, to stay right where you are, position your hands on your thighs for support, connect with your breath, take a few rounds of breath here, and then slowly, it is integral that you remain in the most integrity in your spine as you actually transition your way back out and up to stand. Now, once you come up to standing, take a few breaths and let yourself relax. Let yourself experience the shape, and let yourself prepare to move into the shape one more time. As you prepare to come back into forward fold in this particular variation, this limited mobility, see if you can start to access a different expression by shifting and changing the position of your feet. So consider widening your stance, which comes into that proportional element of the pose, and then slowly, with all the integrity of all the points of the natural curves of your spine, the engagement to your center line with that abdominal stabilization, and this slow progression of drawing the chin gently in as you lower to the point where you still feel the engagement, that your pelvis is actually creating that hip flexion connection, rather than you starting to shift into your spine, taking over and control of the forward fold. And then slowly you make your way back up and give yourself a few moments to pause, to reset, to notice the experience you've just created in your body. Variation B, beginners. So we'll highlight proportion for this organization in this pose, and we'll be on the mat and you'll spread your feet wide to the border edges of your mat and the outer blades of your feet in that alignment. Little slight turnout again with the toes so that you're being sure that you're getting that internal rotation in the femur bones and that access to the pelvis by positioning your feet in that regard. This will ensure or help to support you in the ability of your folding from the pelvis actually rolling over the tops of the femur bones as opposed to folding from your low lumbar spine. So position your feet in that stance. Once again, pay close attention to the natural curvatures of your spine. This is where we're not going to swan dive or come forward into the fold by jutting our chest out and kind of arching the cervical spine. We're going to keep the elongation and the naturalness of the spine as you slowly hinge from your hips, moving with gravity to come down into the forward fold. Now, watch the ego here. The goal is not to get your hands to the mat. Focus more on keeping length in the backs of your legs rather than bending the knees. Consider, and I highly encourage you and encourage your students to place your hands on blocks. Support the hands before you bend the knees so that you can get this maximum experience of bringing release into the backs of the legs by coming into this fold in that regards. So as you come into the fold, slowly let the crown of the head come down, come into this introspective perspective in this fold as you're folding into yourself, rooted and grounded strong in the legs, and try to relax and let your head go. Now, very important as you come out of this posture is as important as how you came in. So you'll slowly, with integrity, keep the natural curvatures of your spine as you keep it elongated and hinge your way back up slowly to stand. Consider letting your eyes lead you, then your chin and your heart, all the way to stand. Give yourself a moment to stand in the experience and notice the release and the sensations in this shape. Variation C, mixed level. Let's explore this approach within the concept and organization of presence. So here's where you're really going to start tapping into the natural, intelligent intuitiveness of your body. And this is where you're going to explore this shape with the same position of the feet. Widen the stance a little bit. Could be to the edges of your mat with that little turnout again of the toes. So we want to align as we did in the other variations as well to make sure that forward folding is always coming from the pelvis and the action of the hip flexion rather than the rounding of the spine and folding from that low lumbar region. So widen your stance. Turn the toes in a little bit and consider here you're grounded and strong in your legs. Slow progression again down with that intuitive intelligence of the natural articulations of the spine and the abdominals engaging to center line to take you down into the forward fold. Once you're in the fold, release your head. This is introspection when you're folding into yourself. You're dropping what you know. You're moving from thinking into a felt felt experience in your body in this shape. Consider here in this approach catching hold of your elbows and coming into a ragdoll expression here in forward fold. Feet are wide and the legs are strong, but you give the ability for your spine to elongate, creating some traction from the heaviness of your head. Slow progression and thoughtfulness as you come out of the shape. Always integrate to center. Know that you're coming up against gravity, so let the eyes lead you slowly, your chin, your heart, and slowly rise to come to stand. Give yourself a moment at the top to stand tall, stand well, and experience the fullness of all that forward folding invites us into as we fold into the interior of the experience and away from the exterior. Here's where I want to highlight again this kind of juxtaposition of if we're jutting our chest out and then trying to dive down into the pose, it creates this kind of discord with our nervous system. So we want to serve and soothe and nourish our nervous system as we come into these expressions of the pose. Today we explored the breakdown of standing forward fold. Be sure when it comes to cueing and directives that you're using language to lead that is in anatomical reality. So if you're a yoga teacher and you're seeking and could benefit greatly from some additional support, I am a mentor for you and I provide many opportunities for you to grow in development. I have a podcast, the Beyond Yoga Teacher Training Podcast, and I have other options and things available on my website. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.